Hello, 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 once again to another game developer interview courtesy of Game Devs of Color Expo 2023. I'm your ballin' host, the Purple Sharpie, and I'm here with the COO of GameFlo Inc, Syeeda. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me here. Really excited to get into it with you today.
I'm really excited to get into this brand new project you've been telling me about called PickUp. Can you tell me some more about it, just, for the audience?
Yes, ma'am. So we are the makers of PickUp Basketball, which is a fast-paced deck building card game, can be played, set up and played in under 30 minutes. There's two ways to play, one box. So you can either do PickUp Classic, which is a little bit longer, or you can do PickUp, which is much faster when you got a second.
Well, as we take the time to dribble through these really quick interview questions and prepare them, let's go ahead and show off this trailer.
There's been a call for streetballers from all over the world to play in a tournament like none other. 1 million people entered the name, but only those with the most heart were chosen. It's up to you to come up with the right game plan. Pick up basketball. Guard up. Get buckets.
So Syeeda, that entire trailer, absolute slam dunk, goes without saying. Amazing opportunities there. Absolutely have to call the ref for that very last slam dunk because it kind of destroyed the backboard, but it's okay. Now look, I'll be honest with you. A basketball game that's also a card game was not, I believe, in my specific bingo card for games that would have been releasing in 2022 or 2023. Talk to me about the vision that you and your team had for the creation of this game and why you opted to create it in a physical card game format.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, GameFlo was really founded on the premise of bringing people together. And it really started with our founder and CEO, Chi Nwagu, who spent a lot of time working with different youth organizations and kids. And he would just see how their faces would light up when they talked about things like sports. As much as there's no way around it, sports is such a unifying aspect of our culture, and it really brings people together. So do games. And so what was a way to continue to bring people together, continuing to engage parents with their kids, families, so on and so forth, friends. I play this all the time with my significant other. Was really to create a game that also had the theme of sports. And so we decided to start with basketball, which is, one of the top sports in terms of popularity here in the US.
For sure. It's the unofficial favorite of all Americans. I think
so.
it's one of the craziest things that America created in terms of sports. But what I really love to know is how did these physical cards come into the world? Was there a specific distribution company or something along the lines? What was that path like from idea into literally printed cards?
Yeah, so I joined GameFlo just before the start of the pandemic, when we were still very much in the prototyping phase of the company and the card game. And in reality, I mean, the first iteration of these cards was literally just we're talking like basic prototyping here of just having different NBA players, WNBA players, kind of like taped to these like physical note cards, while our CTO, Ian Allen, kind of started to wrap his arms around the mechanics of the game. And so from there were two things that happened. One, the creation of the actual game, but two, really thinking about what did we want the experience of the individual to have and relationship that we wanted them to have with our characters in the game. And so we scrapped the idea of really basing this solely on, famous basketball players. And we really started on the idea of wanting to allow people to either be able to see themselves in a game, which I think for a lot of individuals of different backgrounds, marginalized groups don't always get to see, underrepresented groups don't always get to see. And that's where we started to kind of like create this really rich, diverse array of different characters for the game.
Now, I really want to touch on that last line that you talked about regarding specifically the target that you're trying to reach with this game being underrepresented. It's obviously no secret that a majority of basketball players are obviously specifically Black.
Yep.
And I understand that GameFlo Incorporated is also Black-owned business, 100% built up with people of color. I would love to understand how the diversity on your team also allowed you to tell such an important story, and kind of get to, I feel like, the meat of the understanding that you also talked about earlier inside this interview, which was that you're trying to make sure that you bridge that gap inside of the community, of these underrepresented communities. Did you feel like the diversity on your team played into your ability to cover that?
Absolutely. I think one, just even being able to empathize with this idea of I don't see myself, allowed us to kind of step outside of, like, we are a Black owned, organization. Yes, in basketball, that's definitely like a, you know, uh, core demographic of people are Black in basketball. And so it's a little bit of a different diversity project in terms of kind of being able to branch outside of that. So absolutely being able to empathize with how do we make sure that someone can say, I see myself, or I see my friend, or I see somebody that I know in the game. Because, growing up, you don't always get to see yourself. And so being able to connect to that feeling and making sure that, wait a minute, we're missing this type of identity, or we're skewing too heavily male, or skewing too heavily female. Those were all different ways that we were able to, kind of connect to that empathy and say, all right, we need to have an array of identities, from racial, sexual orientation, gender identity. All of that needs to be really pulled through the game.
Do you feel as though there are certain aspects of the art that also capture that diversity? I noticed, obviously, that the art style is really cartoonish, but still really based inside of, I would say, traditional media. So you have slightly exaggerated, obviously, animations and cartoon features on the characters, but at their core, they're still very much so you identify them as people. I would love to know if you all gathered inspiration as well for any of the characters that we see inside of the game from maybe the NBA or the WNBA?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to not to like completely separate, some really powerhouse individuals. I mean, I think that anyone who plays the game will definitely be able to pick on a couple of familiar seeming faces. I wouldn't say that we directly looked at, for example, LeBron James and said we got to have a LeBron James character, but there's most certainly a character that resembles, or so we're told, resembles LeBron James, simply because, I mean, that's an identity that is, forever tied to the game of basketball. And so most certainly it would be impossible not to be influenced by some of the greats in the WNBA and the NBA. And you can definitely feel that throughout the cards, for sure.
I want to take a step away from some of the artistic aspects of the game and talk a little bit more about the gameplay. You stated, obviously, that your CTO had a very, very big handle and understanding and looking into the gameplay mechanics. Inside of the game, there are 3 basic actions that a player can take after they start the game, which is that they can draw, they can play, and they can shoot. I would love to know more about your team's methodology around these 3 important states of every single turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian Allen completely just created such an amazing game from our perspective, because he was really able to capture the essence of a pickup basketball game, 3-on-3, in a card game. And that's really like the basis for, obviously, pickup basketball. So having those 3 actions, I mean, those are at the crux of the flow of an actual pickup basketball game. And that is, I would say that's 100% the basis for the mechanics of our card game, is meant to really replicate a 3-on-3 pickup basketball game.
So I know you stated that the CTO of the game actually spent a lot of time researching this. Was he a big fan of basketball? Was there a lot of research that he also did while creating the game mechanics inside of here that he referenced?
Yeah, I have to say absolutely. So Ian Allen, who's our CTO and the creator of the game PickUp, as well as our CEO, Chi Nwagu, both are huge basketball fans. Ian and Chi both actually play PickUp basketball. So they, from the game creating or game creation aspect, Ian had all of that firsthand experience of actually what it is like to, play this game. And not just playing the game, but the culture of pickup, kind of really trying to embed some of those similar feelings, similar vibes into the actual game. I think he did a fantastic job of doing that. But then also doing his due diligence. We're all gamers, right? We all love to play games. Having started a gaming company. So taking the time to play, I think like at one point Ian was like playing so many different card games and like, sending us like little, you guys should check this out, in terms of different card games that he was playing so he could take, understand some of the best practices as far as card game mechanics, and how to create like a very, it's pickup basketball. It's fast paced. It's meant to be highly engaging, right? How do you capture that in a card game? How do you make it so sure that the game is also equally as fast paced, competitive, edgy? So definitely did a lot of research, and having that firsthand experience playing pickup basketball is what really, what he really ingrained and built into the actual card game for sure.
One of the interesting mechanics that really stood out to me in the research for this game was the fact that every single player, with the exception of the 5 characters that you start off with, have special abilities. I would really be interested in understanding the methodology as well that went into the addition of special abilities for the playable characters.
Yeah. So if you think about this as just like the basis of a card game and the mechanics that go into a lot of popular card games out there right now, being able to have a special ability allowed for us to create a game in which, yes, there's a lot of strategy here, but there's also, the game, like there's a little bit of chance or a little bit of luck in terms of like, what is the actual, special ability of that character and how is that going to be an advantage for you playing, playing the game. I mean, every basketball player has like a different skill set, has like a different, specialty. And so that's something that we really wanted to ring true for each one of our characters. I call them players as well.
So, Syeeda, my final question here is actually, obviously, with the quarantine, we had a lot of people stuck inside their homes, unable to communicate. And we saw a lot of video games being passed and circulating, a lot of people exploring games for the first time. Coming out of quarantine, we're seeing almost exactly the opposite. A lot of people engaging together, a lot of people spending time together. So I do have to ask, did that play into your decision to come out with a physical card game at all, as opposed to coming out with a digital version first of this game? Or I would love to hear what actually the intent was with coming out with the physical card game first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a great question. So in terms of having a physical game, really, again, at the core of us, at the core of our mission, we really want to bring people together. And so that wasn't the easiest thing or easiest path to set out on once the pandemic hit. But, we decided to stay strong with that and create a physical card game, mainly because one, again, bringing people together, and two, the other big piece for us was around accessibility. Making sure that, everyone would be able to have access to this game out the gate was something that was really important to us. And so we stuck to that path. And so, in terms of like what you just said now, we have a lot of people who are actually taking advantage of the fact that we can finally be together and engaged. And so it's actually worked out for us in terms of being kind of the perfect time to continue to socialize the game. Because we really are about, communities at the center of everything that we do. And we've even gotten like really beautiful stories from parents who are like, all my kid loves is basketball. And so this is finally something I can kind of engage with them on. Or, I love basketball, but my significant other doesn't, but this is now a way for us to share basketball together. And just that's kind of what keeps us going and thinking that we made the right choice as far as, again, bringing people together with a physical card game.
Syeeda, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate you discussing the very first project that your team has ever created, PickUp. Appreciate you so much for this interview.
Appreciate the time, and guard up, get buckets, everyone.
Appreciate you, viewer, for tuning in and watching this interview. If you too would like to support GameFlo, I highly recommend checking out their Instagram account @_GameFlo for more information on their tentative digital release of the game. That's going to do it for this interview, but stay tuned. We have even more Game Devs of Color Expo 2023 coming up right now.